If you are under 30 and struggling to pay your bills, it is your fault. And yes, I am serious. It is your fault because you have been convinced that your fragility is a sickness, that your lack of focus is a disorder, and that your failure is the fault of a system that needs to give you a crutch. I will repeat, your fragility is the reason you are unemployed. And don't bother clicking on this video just to complain in the comments, because I am going to prove to you that the greatest epidemic of our generation is not a lack of opportunities. It is a lack of shame in accepting that discipline is more important than diagnosis. Let's dive into the data, but with a different kind of magnifying glass. Youth unemployment rates in many countries are historically high. We look at the charts, we point fingers at the economy, at politics. But I see something more fundamental. I see a generation that, instead of facing pressure, runs towards the most convenient label. Today, having a diagnosis is more socially valuable than having a goal. You don't have ADHD. You just can't last 60 minutes without looking at your phone. And the difference is that one requires medication and self-pity. The other requires a switch called discipline. And the point here is not about denying science. Of course, mental health disorders are real, but what we are witnessing is the appropriation of clinical vocabulary to justify mediocrity. When basic laziness is rebranded as emotional dysregulation disorder, and the simple fact that you are disrespectful is excused as a neurodivergent trait, we lose the moral compass. The consequence? People who should be learning to deal with frustration are learning to justify it. Think about the corporate world, or better yet, think about the world of those who build their own empires, the world we know as the 101 path. $1 million, 0 employees in 1 year. This goal, which we call harvest, demands a level of resistance to frustration that is simply not being cultivated. Do you think an individual pursuing the 101 can afford to have a bad day because the work environment is not sensitive to their needs? No. The environment is you, the system is you, and the only sensitivity that matters is that of the market. Do you think the job market cares about your emotional triggers? The market has one trigger: money. If you are not generating value, the only thing you are triggering is your own termination. Period. Here we enter the technical field. What we are losing is what neuroscience calls cognitive resilience. It is your brain's ability to maintain focus and function under stress, frustration, or disinterest. In the past, this was called maturity or grit. Today, if you have to do a boring spreadsheet or study complex code and your mind wanders, the quick diagnosis is ADHD. But cognitive resilience is not something you either have or don't have from birth. It is a muscle that you train by intentionally exposing yourself to difficult and monotonous tasks. Today's youth, raised in an environment of instant gratification, likes, reels, notifications, have this muscle atrophied. They are biologically ill-equipped for the sustained effort that any significant success demands. To execute a harvest, you have to withstand months of invisible, frustrating work. You have to have the grit for the 101. And this brings us back to the starting point. Your fragility is the reason you are unemployed. It is not a lack of jobs. It is your inability to tolerate boredom, criticism, repetitive tasks, or negative feedback. You are unemployed because you lack the backbone to be a valuable asset. I know this is hard to hear, but the goal is to shock you into action. The solution is not in more therapy, nor in more labels. It is in creating a minimum action structure, which is the foundation of our philosophy. What is the minimum structure? It is the opposite of chaos. It is you defining 3 things that have to be done today, and you do them regardless of your mood. It is not about motivation. It is about mechanism. Motivation is a recreational drug. It gives you a 20-minute peak and then leaves you in a procrastination hangover. What builds the 101, what builds anything lasting, is not motivation. It is the system that forces you to act even when you hate what you are doing. Think about the concept of launch, or as we call it, harvest. A successful launch is not a moment of brilliant inspiration. It is months of tedious micro-tasks, reviewing an email 15 times, optimizing a pixel on a page, responding to hundreds of comments. It is a process. But what today's youth see is only the stage, the 6 and 7. They don't see the 700 hours of cognitive resilience that preceded that moment. You are not unemployed because you are less intelligent. You are unemployed because you were taught that feeling matters more than results. And in a world where financial success without a team, the zero employees of the 101, is totally possible through automation and sharp strategy. The only thing stopping you is your own unwillingness to sit down and do the boring work. Embrace the discomfort. Reject the convenient label. The difference between the frustrated unemployed and the one who achieves the harvest of 1 million with zero employees in 1 year is not IQ. It is the threshold of tolerance for boredom and frustration. If your response to an obstacle is to victimize yourself with a psychological label, you will never be a noble. You will just be another number in the unemployment statistic. The 101 is not for the sensitive. It is for those who understood that true mental health is having a healthy bank account. And to have that health, you have to stop excusing your indiscipline with science. Your cure starts now. Turn off your phone and do the boring thing you've been avoiding for your financial freedom. What was the last boring but crucial thing you postponed today? Leave it in the comments. I want to see who here is ready to stop complaining and start their own harvest.